Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to be diving into our first post-NFL Combine mock draft for the 2022 NFL Draft. Here, the Combine is literally just wrapping up as I'm recording this video, and the safety group that was the final section of players has just finished up here. So we're on our way. We've got everyone's testing times. We've seen all the players performing their drills that are going to be competing or that did compete in this year's Combine. And now it's time to start talking about these players and trying to predict where we think they're going to go. So today we're going to be going through the first round, the top 32 picks in the NFL Draft. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get started. As we get started today, if you're new around here to the SFS channel, make sure to drop down and click that subscribe button to join the community. I'll be putting out weekly mock drafts here from this point going forward up until the NFL Draft. And we might just have some NFL Draft coverage for you guys this year as well. We're also putting out Dynasty fantasy football content every week as well. So a lot of stuff here, a lot of football-related content on the SFS channel. And of course, let me know your thoughts on today's picks down in the comment section below. I know we're going to disagree on some picks, so I want to hear your thoughts. Who do you want to see your team pick, and why do you want to see that player headed to your franchise? I'd love to hear and have a conversation with you guys down in the comment section below. So, Jacksonville at number 1 here. I had this in my first pre-combine mock draft. Evan Neal, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. This is a massive 6'7" human being that can be a stalwart tackle and address a huge position of need for this Jacksonville roster. They have got to make this season, or this offseason rather, about making Trevor Lawrence's life easier. You went out last year, had the first pick in the draft in 2021, and you got your franchise quarterback. You got the difference maker for this team. So now go out and protect him and help him stay healthy and upright and give this offense more time to create plays and to get that offensive scheme rolling under new head coach Doug Peterson. Detroit here at number 2, I've got them going Aiden Hutchinson, by far my best pass rusher in this year's draft class, ahead of Kayvon Thibodeaux, who I think is a very sturdy prospect and a stud in his own right, but I think that Hutchinson is the clear number 1 edge rusher in this year's class. I think his physicality, his high motor, the effort he puts in play in and play out are all fantastic and all embody what Dan Campbell is as a head coach. And I think he'd be a perfect fit to stay in Michigan and head to the Detroit Lions. I think he could be a difference maker in that front 4. At number 3, the aforementioned Kayvon Thibodeaux here heads to the Houston Texans out of the University of Oregon. Not that I don't like Kayvon Thibodeaux, that's not what I was saying in that last segment there, but I do think that Aiden Hutchinson is the superior edge in this draft. Thibodeaux is a very powerful edge rusher. He does have a nice arsenal of edge rushing moves. However, I don't think he bends the edge quite as nice as Hutchinson. And I think that Aiden brings a few more tools and traits to the table. I think his motor runs a little bit hotter. However, the Texans would be getting kind of that defensive centerpiece that they're looking for here with Thibodeaux at the number 3 spot and get that ever so important edge rusher position, at least on one side of that defensive line, solved here with Thibodeaux at 3. At number 4, I've got Ike Ekwonu out of NC State heading to the New York Jets. Again, another draft to improve the offensive line. Last year, we saw them take Elijah Vera Tucker and previous draft Mekhi Becton. Now you can have the choice. Do you want to play Ike Ekwonu at right tackle or left tackle? You do have that versatility now if this is the pick with those 2 top-tier prospects at the tackle position to protect Zach Wilson and make sure he is able to find success. This could really be a fast-tracking start here for this Jets organization to solve that position of need and make sure that they've got their franchise quarterback protected and able to make plays inside and outside of the pocket. There's an argument to be made here that some would think Ike Ekwonu is the top tackle in this draft class. I think very, very highly of him. However, as you've seen in back-to-back mocks, I have had Evan Neal go twice in each of those 2 mock drafts. I will probably put out a mock draft at some point in time with Ike Ekwonu heading off the board prior to Evan Neal, but for today, I'm sticking with Evan Neal as my top offensive tackle prospect, and Ike Ekwonu goes here at number 4. At number 5, Kyle Hamilton. I was just talking about in the intro how I just finished up watching the safeties run. Kyle Hamilton, I don't think did quite as well as he would have hoped in the 40-yard dash. Now, his unofficial time was a 4.59, which is still dang fast for a guy who's 6'4", 220. However, again, I do think that he might have expected to go a little bit faster than that. However, the tape and the play speed is fantastic. He's rangy, flies all over the football field, and he would give the Giants a playmaker on the defensive side of the ball that they are desperately looking for. I think their run stop has been very formidable. Their defensive line is very impressive. You got to find some more help on the back end. You've got some nice veterans in that secondary. However, I think Kyle Hamilton brings something to the table that no one else in that unit can quite provide. And again, someone that can cover a slot receiver to a tight end to wide receivers big and small. This is a chess piece that you can use very much so to your favor as a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. At number 6 here, I got my first quarterback coming off the board, a significant rise from my previous mock draft where I had Malik Willis falling to Pittsburgh. However, I think at number 6 here, teams fall in love with quarterbacks. And Malik Willis had a really impressive final season at Liberty. He's got a big arm. He's mobile. He can evade pressure in the pocket. And obviously, character is a big thing for quarterbacks. And I'm sure you saw by now the video of him helping out a homeless individual during the NFL Combine. That got him some high praise from a lot of media outlets and teams alike, the NFL community. So it's clear that Malik Willis is a good guy. He's a talented player on the football field as well. And I think that he could really be a huge help to this Panthers football team. I apologize if you can hear the sirens in the background of this video, but Malik Willis is someone that I think can be a difference maker for this team. Obviously, it's looking like Sam Darnold's not going to work out here. You've got Matt Rule on the hot seat, and they really need to make something happen this season. He would have an infrastructure where his offensive line isn't the greatest, but again, that's something he can overcome with that mobility to get outside the pocket and to elude that pressure. And then you've got a wide receiver core with, or capped off rather, by DJ Moore. And then you've got Terrace Marshall, a young up-and-coming and ascending wide receiver, Robbie Anderson signed to an extension, and CMC out of the backfield. So a lot to work with offensively if Willis is the pick at 6. At number 7, I have Trevor Penning out of UNI here heading to New York. I think that Penning is someone who's seeing his stock rise quite a bit right now. This is a nasty player. Apparently he watches horror movies the night before games to quote, get into character. So that's something if you didn't know about Trevor Penning. But he's a mauler. He's an absolute physical beast here when it comes to not only the run game, but the pass game. He finishes his block, definitely blocks through the whistle. And, you could say that if you were on the defensive side of the ball, certainly he's a rather unpleasant individual to deal with. So the Giants would get someone that could certainly be a plug-and-play option at the right tackle position. And as we know, owner John Mara is very disappointed with the offensive line performance and how that position has been addressed. So I expect one of the 2 first-round picks this team has this year to be addressing that offensive line position so that they can try to protect Daniel Jones moving forward. At number 8, I've got my top cornerback in this year's draft, Derek Stingley, heading to the Atlanta Falcons. I think that Stingley is someone who obviously the red flag with Stingley is the fact that his best football came in the 2019 season. Since that point in time, he hasn't necessarily looked like the same player. However, this is a guy who is uber talented, has film of him being a lockdown defender. One of the most interesting things that I saw from Derek Stingley at the Combine was film of him in practice against Jamar Chase and the job he was able to do on him. So you've clearly got a very talented player here. This is someone who I think has all of the traits, all of the intangibles to be a shutdown NFL corner. And if he heads to Atlanta, he does have the advantage that you've already got A.J. Terrell on one side of the field, and that's going to potentially be locking up a team's best receiver at points in time throughout the game when he's lined up on that side of the field. I believe Terrell plays the left boundary of that Falcons defense. So I think this would be a good fit. Very talented player. I would love to see the Falcons snatch up another DB to help improve that secondary. At number 9, I've got the Broncos taking Kenny Pickett out of the University of Pittsburgh. Look, I'm going to be brutally honest with Broncos fans here. I don't think you're going to end up getting Russell Wilson. I don't think you're going to end up getting Aaron Rodgers via trade. I find it highly unlikely that 2 star quarterbacks are going to be on the move this offseason. If you ask me, I think that both quarterbacks are staying put. I'd be shocked to see an NFL team give up a player that they spent years trying to find in a draft, and players that are so hard to come by, regardless of what you're willing to pay for that player at the quarterback position. So What that leaves is the Broncos in kind of a conundrum with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, who clearly have not been able to get the job done to you, or for you to this point in time. So I don't think you're getting anywhere if you waste another season with one of those two guys in their center. I think you go out here, draft Kenny Pickett, and see what he can do. This is an NFL-ready quarterback with a lot of pass catchers, from Noah Fant to Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. You've got KJ Hamler, who hasn't been able to stay healthy yet. Tim Patrick, and you've got Javonte Williams out of the backfield. There's a variety of options to throw the football to for a player who, again, has the ability to make plays outside the pocket. He's not the most athletic guy. He's certainly not a scrambler, but he does have the savvy quarterback gene to just make plays. People are complaining about his hand size, 8.5 inches. For what it's worth, those of you wondering, I did look up and tweet. If you don't follow me on Twitter, go follow me at FantasySizzle, or check out the link in the description of today's episode. But I did tweet out that the average adult male hand size is 7.6 inches. So apparently, Kenny Pickett does have above average hands, or above averagely sized hands for that matter. So, yeah, for those of you that are interested in the hand debate, there's that piece of information for you. At number 10, I've got the Jets taking Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. I think that Ahmad Gardner is someone who I go back and forth. I see the raw potential. I see the huge size and the athleticism he possesses at that size. A player that did run a 4.41 40-yard dash officially at the NFL Combine. Someone that did not allow a single receiving touchdown in his NFL career. But then I see someone on tape who's a little bit overly physical, someone whose long physique at times can make him look a little bit awkward when defending the pass. But I guess at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. I do think he's going to have trouble getting called for pass interference and holding at the next level. I just think that those ticky-tack penalties are really going to bite him in the butt. But I do think the Jets severely need cornerback health, and he would be the next best player on my board now. Almost the consensus-wide rankings is that he is the number one defensive back in this class, or cornerback for that matter, because Kyle Hamilton is widely regarded as the top defensive back overall. But at number 10 here, I don't think you can dispute taking a shot on a player who has absolute number one. He could potentially have the upside of someday being the top cornerback in the National Football League. So if I'm the Jets, I would entertain taking a chance here because their secondary is a position of need that severely could use help in that unit. At number 11, I've got the Commanders taking Charles Cross, the offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Charles Cross is someone who I think has fantastic capability in the pass protection game, has quick feet, and knows how to sink his hips to, again, drop back and absorb bull rushes and be a really effective pass protector. He's not a mauler in the run game, but I think this is something the Washington football team needs as they're still kind of reeling and trying to recover from losing Trent Williams a few years ago. The Charles Leno pickup was a nice add this year, and he had a solid season, but you've got to address that other side of the line. And at this point in time, I'm not so sure if it's worth taking another quarterback at the number 11 overall pick because I don't think that player is going to be a world changer for this organization, but we'll see what ends up happening here this April. At number 12, I'm sticking with my pick from my first mock draft, Trent McDuffie, the defensive back out of the University of Washington, which is basically regarded as DBU at this point with all the corners that they've had come successfully out of their university. And man, does Trent McDuffie look like he could be one of the best of the bunch. Super smooth, super fluid, rarely out of phase on tape. At the Combine, I thought he looked fantastic in the movement drills. Again, looked super, super smooth. I loved how he got in and out of breaks, changed directions. His hands looked decent in the hands drill. It was great. And I think he had a great Combine. I think that he didn't necessarily help his stock a ton because I think that people are already very, very high on him. But I certainly think that he has maintained that top status in this draft as being a really, really solid player. 4.44 40-yard dash. You love all the traits that Trent McDuffie brings to the table here. At number 13, Trayvon Walker, someone who has certainly seen his stock rise here out of the University of Georgia. A versatile chess piece on the defensive line that I think could give this Cleveland Browns front with Myles Garrett somewhere on that defensive line maybe one of the most elitely versatile and athletic groups in the National Football League. I'm not so sure if Jadeveon Clowney is going to be retained and re-signed, brought back next year, but I don't think you need to. If you're going to draft Trayvon Walker, someone that can line up in the interior in pass rushing situations or line up on the edge and rush from that position as well. Very, very athletic. And I think he would give, again, a ton of versatility to this Browns defensive line. And if you can find a versatile pass rusher, that's one of the most valuable assets on that side of the football. At number 14, I've got Tyler Linderbaum out of the University of Iowa, heading to the Ravens at number 14 here. Look, the Ravens need to rebuild that interior offensive line. It's been kind of eroding since that Lamar Jackson MVP season. You need to get someone back under center who can have an immediate impact, or back at the center position or any spot on the interior of the offensive line. They can really create a push in that run game and get this back to being that dominant rushing offense, because they certainly took a step backwards this past season, both due to injuries at the running back position, first and foremost, having offensive line issues as well, losing some players in free agency and retirement, remarkable or notably here, Marshall Yanda, if you guys remember back to how dominant he was as a Raven. But I think Linderbaum would have a Creed Humphrey-like impact on this team and be a player of immediate impact and status with this organization. George Karlaftis at number 15 here out of Purdue, heading to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think Karlaftis has the highest ceiling in the world, but he's definitely someone that has a wide variety of skills that he can bring to the table to have almost a day one impact. You've got guys like Brandon Graham coming back from some significant injury and not getting any younger, and you need to address this position group. If you can't put pressure on the quarterback, you're not winning football games, and you can get someone here in Karlaftis that can play the run and the pass. Back-to-back picks here for the Eagles. Drake London, the first wide receiver off the board in this mock. Debate me with that if you will, and actually I will come out and say Drake London is not my number one wide receiver in this class. However, I do think the fit is there, and the Eagles have been known to not make the best decisions when drafting wide receivers. Just ask them about Jalen Reagor and Justin Jefferson, or I guess last season Devontae Smith didn't really get too many opportunities, and he's certainly not someone who I'm going to label as a bust at all. However, I do think that he would pair very nicely with Drake London, a big, tall wide receiver that has a large wingspan, can win those jump balls. He dominates in the 50-50 situations. It's more like an 80-20 ball. And is someone who has deceptive quickness in his outbreaking routes. I think he's someone that runs a little bit better routes than I initially gave him credit for, but he's still not my favorite in this class. Again, though, the Eagles do like larger receivers, and I do think he's someone that can bring some tools and traits to the table for this offense. Garrett Wilson, back-to-back wide receivers here at 17 to the LA Chargers. This is my top guy in the class, and Garrett Wilson is someone who runs every route in the tree. He has elite athleticism, 4.38 40-yard dash. That's very, very quick, faster than his teammate Chris Olave, which actually surprised me a bit. And he's someone who I just think plays with a great amount of poise, and he just moves so smooth, and is someone who I think has all the athletic traits to be a completely dominant player at the next level. So you pair him with Justin Herbert here, you can have a three-headed monster and have him learning from Keenan Allen alongside Mike Williams. It sounds like they're not letting him go. So if you have all those wide receivers and bring them to the table, it gives you kind of that Rams vibe from this past season where they absolutely loaded up that wide receiver core. At number 18, I've got the Saints taking Treylon Burks, who is my number 2 wide receiver in the class. But again, in this mock, we've got the order mixed up a little bit here because of fit. I think Treylon Burks fits really good with this Saints football team. You've got Michael Thomas, who is kind of your slant route runner, your middle of the field attacker, and you can get a guy in Treylon Burks who came out and said he wants to mold his game after Deebo Samuel. That's going to be your run after catch machine, your guy who gets out in space and uses his size and physicality as an asset. Burks is not quite as fast or as Deebo Samuel in terms of the 40-yard dash. Burks timed in at 4.55, just slightly behind Deebo Samuel at 4.48. Not the biggest deal or biggest discrepancy in the world, but something I thought I would bring up since that comparison was made. But at Arkansas, we saw them get the ball out in space to Treylon Burks and have him run after catch with that football. So I think that that's certainly a skill he brings to the table. At 19, Kenyon Green, offensive line out of Texas A&M to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this makes a lot of sense as well for the Eagles to rebuild that interior offensive line. You've got a run the football first identity here in Philadelphia. And if you're going to keep playing smash mouth football, you got to make sure you have the offensive linemen to move people out of the way. Green is my top interior lineman in this class. Matt Corral at number 20 here to Pittsburgh. I do not like this pick. However, if I'm Pittsburgh, I cannot walk into next season trying to sell Mason Rudolph as my franchise quarterback. Matt Corral has his flaws. Sometimes on tape, I think that he plays like an idiot when he puts his shoulder down and tries to truck linebackers. However, he does have a playmaking gene. He does have the ability to, and we saw at Ole Miss, raise the level of players around him. He lost a lot of players in the draft a season prior, and he still came out and balled and had a very impressive season. So I do think there's some upside here. I do think he has a little bit of that gamer mentality in him. I think that he can come out, make some plays, make this Steelers team more exciting, and he's got a lot of weapons to work with. So that if this happens, I think he does have an opportunity to succeed. At number 21, Devin Lloyd to the New England Patriots, someone whose stock I think fell a little bit because he didn't test overly well at the NFL Combine. However, the tape speaks for itself, and I can only knock him so much for those combine numbers. At the end of the day, they weren't terrible. He ran a 4.66 40-yard dash. Now, that's very good by a linebacker standards. However, I think that when we put him up to a Devin White and some of the freakishly athletic linebackers in the game today, it doesn't look as impressive. But his ranginess, his ability to make tackles and be such a sound player on tape, and again, a playmaker, a disruptor, this is the type of player that the New England Patriots love to have at that linebacker position. Again, a long guy as well, who is not going to let players break out of tackles and get away from him. So I think that this is something that would be a steal at this point in the draft. And like I said, I think his stock got hurt a little bit by his testing numbers, and he didn't look overly impressive in some of the drills. I think that he didn't necessarily have his best day, but someone who I still think commands a lot of capital and a lot of respect amongst NFL front offices. At number 22, sticking with my same pick from last time, we've got Chris Olave headed to the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, they have a very average wide receiver core. They need to address this position, and they love deep threats, which we've seen not always pan out the best. Obviously, Henry Ruggs being the latest rendition of that. Deshaun Jackson was brought in to kind of fulfill that role. However, he had his flashes and whatever. He's very, very old at this point in his career, so go get yourself someone that can do it and have some longevity. Chris Olave is very, very smooth. Ran a 4.39 40, so just barely slower than Garrett Wilson, his former teammate in college. But Olave is someone who I think a lot of at the next level. I think him and Derek Carr would be a fantastic pairing together. And I think this would be a fun connection to see there. At number 23, I've got Jameson Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama, heading to the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are a team that I think, on paper, this past season looked like they had a loaded wide receiver core, but I think that things will look a lot different here in the 2022 season. DeAndre Hopkins is getting older and older as we speak, and his injuries, and in particular his hamstring, has been an issue more and more frequently as we have made our way throughout his career. Christian Kirk, their leading receiver this past season, is a free agent, and A.J. Green is getting up there in age, so we'll see how much he contributes to this team or if they even bring him back for this next season. And Rondale Moore, to me, is more of a gadget player than he is a true starting receiver in the National Football League. So Jameson Williams, who is recovering from an ACL injury, I think is a fantastic deep ball player. And being paired with the quarterback in Kyler Murray, who is one of the best deep ball passers, he is a really, really good deep ball thrower of the football. I think that this would be a fantastic match here. And with Kyler Murray's issues and disgruntled behavior with the franchise, I think that he would certainly appreciate having another weapon at his disposal. I think that would bode well for both the organization and Kyler Murray. Nakobe Dean at 24 here heading to Dallas. This is a great off-ball linebacker, a little bit undersized, but very athletic, fast, and he's able to close the gap between himself and the ball carrier in a flash. I think that this would be a steal for the Cowboys, who are looking at a guy who can potentially fulfill that Micah Parsons role that they maybe envisioned more so when they drafted him, but then they discovered that Micah Parsons, is such a dominant pass rusher and can be used in a variety of other ways that they didn't necessarily want him playing off-ball anymore. So now you can maybe get a true off-ball linebacker in this draft and have yet another fantastic pick here in the first round. I think this would be a win for the Cowboys at 24. At number 25, I've got Jermaine Johnson, maybe going a little bit low. Analysts have been getting increasingly more optimistic and high on Jermaine Johnson and his stock and what he can provide to an NFL team, and in terms of his prospect rating here as we got past the NFL Combine, he was certainly a winner of that weekend or week-long experience, whatever you want to call it. But I've got him at number 25 here heading to the Buffalo Bills. I definitely think the Bills need to continue taking swings at edge rushers in the draft. They haven't been able to necessarily cash in on someone so far. You go back and you look at Greg Rousseau, who definitely has his flaws in his game, and then they took the Iowa pass rusher the year before that. And he hasn't necessarily, AJ Epinesa, and he hasn't necessarily resulted in overly large amounts of productivity. So when you're looking at games like that AFC divisional round contest between the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, and you see how much more comfortable Patrick Mahomes was in the pocket as opposed to Josh Allen running for his life, I think it's pretty evident that you either have to address the pass rusher position and make other teams' quarterback more uncomfortable, or you've got to go at the O-line spot and try and make Josh Allen more comfortable. At this number 25 spot, though, you're kind of starting to get into no man's land here where it starts to become hard to read between the lines and tell exactly what's going to be a great fit for these teams or who's even going to be on the board. So these are definitely the picks that I would say are most highly up to debate because of the wide variety of outcomes that could occur. At number 26, I've got David Ojabo going here out of Michigan. Still a little bit of a raw prospect, could figure out how to rush the passer and play the run a bit better, but he is a freak of a talent and someone who could definitely become a very productive edge rusher, someone who, again, is very, very athletic and brings a lot to the table. This Titans team is another one that could use some more help getting to the quarterback, just rushing for. They've got some great interior pressure with Jeffrey Simmons. They do have Harold Landry and Bud Dupree at the moment, but you can always keep adding to that rotation and making that unit increasingly stronger. At number 27, one pick here that might be a little bit of a hot take per se, something that I think that might not necessarily happen, but I think it's a good fit. And for this Buccaneers team in general, it felt like all the picks at this spot were going to be a reach. Bruce Arians kind of talked about the quarterback position, saying that the two scenarios are A, Kyle Trask or Blaine Gabbert is the starting QB, or B, you trade for a QB. So I'll take Bruce Arians' word for it right now. I will temporarily not send a quarterback their way in these mock drafts. But when I looked at the players on the board, I just didn't feel that any of them necessarily met the value and fit kind of intersection perfectly. So I do have Breece Hall going at number 27 here. I don't, again, necessarily think that he is a first-round pick. I think he's a high second-round pick, kind of like a Javonte Williams was last season. But he was far and away the best running back in this combine with his 40-yard dash. And the drills showing his ability to change direction and be a very complete player. He can catch the football out of the backfield. And when you've got two free agent running backs in Tampa Bay, and you might not want to pay to bring both of them back, I think that Breece Hall could easily become a three-down workhorse for this team and satisfy that need for this offense, which is going to have to start playing a little bit more conservative with contracts because of injuries to guys like Chris Godwin. Maybe he doesn't come back next year, and obviously that all-in mentality that they had coming into the 2021 season, bringing Tom Brady back. So definitely an interesting team to look at here. We mocked Desmond Ridder to them last mock draft. So I will definitely be on the lookout and listening for any rumors about players that the Bucs have interest in. I love Jordan Davis out of Georgia as well, as a player who I think is a lot more valuable at this spot. And might be the top player on the board here, but at this point in time, I think that they've got that position pretty much covered with the guys they've got on the roster right now. At 28, I got the Packers taking Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver out of Penn State. The Packers need a number 2 wide receiver and potentially a number 1 if Devontae Adams chooses to walk. This is a player that I think gives them a skill set different from what they have on the team right now. You talk about Allen Lazard, a bigger-bodied blocking receiver who can definitely separate, get open, and make plays, but he's not a deep threat. If you do bring Aaron Rodgers back, I think that having a guy like a Marquez Valdes-Scantling as a free agent, he probably doesn't come back this year. Get him another deep threat, a guy that can make big splash plays over the top and make drives shorter and easier to cash in for 6 points. And I think Jahan Dotson can be that player. I almost expected him to test a little bit faster in the 40-yard dash, but a 4.43 is certainly not something to be disappointed about, or really you shouldn't have too much more expectations from there. At number 29, I've got the Dolphins taking Boye Mafe, the edge out of Minnesota. Still a bit of a raw prospect, but someone that has the intangibles and the the potential to have productivity at the next level. He showed a lot of ability this season at Minnesota. And I think the Dolphins could use another pass rusher. That defense took a step backwards this season, and I think that they'll be looking to improve that unit again and build that group up a bit more this year. We could see them go offensive line, though, or any playmaking position on the defensive side of the ball. I think those are all areas they're looking to address this season. And then you've got Kansas City. I've got them taking Kaiir Elam out of Florida. The Chiefs need to keep this defensive back unit young and productive. you're talking about having multiple shootouts a year with Patrick Mahomes scoring points and having slugfests with the likes of Josh Allen, Justin Herbert in division, Derek Carr for that matter, and all the other great quarterbacks in the National Football League. You're going to need guys that have the ability to cover teams as number 2 and 3 wide receivers. I don't necessarily think that Elam is going to be a shutdown number 1 guy, but this is someone who has really good technique. I like the tape I see on him so far, and is someone that can stay in phase and match a receiver's route. So this is a pick that I think would be very solid for Kansas City. You could also see a name like an Andrew Booth go here, or the other cornerback, Kyler Gordon out of the University of Washington. Are names to keep an eye on in future mocks. Cincinnati here at number 31, Bernard Raymond, offensive tackle out of Central Michigan. If you're a Bengals fan, you are praying that the team addresses the offensive line position, keeps Joe Burrow clean off his back, and they were not able to do that this season. Obviously, getting sacked 9 times in one game against the Titans in the playoffs is an issue. So you can almost have a plug-and-play day 1 right tackle here, someone that can step up to the plate and at least be an improvement over what you have today. Obviously, if the Bengals didn't make it all the way to the Super Bowl, they could maybe have a shot at one of the other elite offensive linemen in this class. But Bernard Raymond, for being a number 31 overall draft pick, would be a very good value pick in any other class that didn't have this strong of an offensive line group. And then finally, I talked about him a few minutes ago, Jordan Davis. I don't think he'll make it down here to number 32. He had a fantastic combine, was definitely one of the winners of the weekend. He ran a 4.78 40-yard dash, 6'6", 340 pounds. And he was booking out there. He has a faster 40-yard dash than some of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So this is an athlete, a guy who is definitely not a pass rusher, but someone who is an immovable force in the run game, and I think will contribute a lot as a nose tackle to an NFL team. So I think his physicality and his versatility, again, as someone who can plug up run lanes and just be a menace in the middle of the field, would be very well paired with what Dan Campbell has there in the defensive unit for the Detroit Lions. And if they back that up with drafting Aiden Hutchinson at number 2, I think that'd be a fantastic first round for the Detroit Lions at number 32. So that was our second mock draft for this season. Make sure to click that subscribe button and turn the bell on so you're never late for a future episode or another mock draft here on the channel. Again, I invite you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.